Hi, this is Robert. It's Fusion Fitness TV. This is March 2010. A few things today. First up is John Wood, who has a great website, oldtimestrongmen.com. Really great stuff on there. Indian clubs, training techniques, old-time training books, all kinds of stuff. Sent an email today, an excerpt from George Jowett, an old book from 1926. George Jowett was a physical culturist back then, a strongman. And they had a much different view of training than most people do. As I always say, fitness saps. There's a lot of people out there that's a fitness sap, but there's really two kinds. There's the kinds that know it and do it anyway, and the kinds that don't really know and are just saps because the system has grinded them up. So this might help a little bit with that, because I've seen this many times with clients. I'm turning 50 this month, so the glasses the last few years have become a necessity, by the way. So here it is. It starts out with the old saying, you got to want it to earn it type thing. And then it goes on to, many a young man has started out to build a better conditioned body for himself. Of course, today that would be young men and women, as women, thank goodness, have found exercise in the last 30 years especially, has found the latter half of that saying about you got to want it to get it. That saying, the latter half of that saying, to be only too true. He fully realizes a perfect body is worth having, and often figures that he has worked for it. But something is wrong with the work, as the progress registered is not proportionate to all his labors. Okay, so in other words, he's working hard, or he thinks he's working hard, but he's not really making the progress, or she's not. Brutal as it may seem, I doubt if all have put forward the right amount of effort. Unfortunately, some believe that as long as they go through their routine, go through their motions, in other words, results should be obtained. Now, of course, today, with the supposedly mind-body revolution of yoga and these new age things, you'd think that people would get the mind-body connection of exercise, but maybe some yoga practitioners have. Unfortunately, it's in the limited scope of yoga, but most have not, and in fact, impatience is probably just as bad as it was 100 years ago, if not worse today. I have a feeling it's worse. Others quit too easily, and others are too impatient. They forget the amount of things that have to be taken into consideration. In the first place, thought, care, and concentration are required from the moment the first movement is made in the first exercise to the very end. So that means when you start your warm-up, if you have one, all the way to the end, when you finish with the last whatever it is you do. Impatience is the worst thing in the world, no matter where it is concerned, and the person who is afflicted in that way is as badly off as the quitter who never gets anywhere. The old, that means the ancient people saw that Rome was not built in a day is still true. And it is true, because human bodies have not changed one iota since the days of ancient Rome. We still have hearts, lungs, kidneys, brain, arms, legs, same muscles. Okay? Unfortunately today, though, some people think that there's even bigger shortcuts. Some device, I mean, this has always been true. There's always been hucksters out plugging this stuff. But I think more than ever, people just try to plug in some exercise and go through the motions without disconnected, without the effort, concentration, so on. And the results are, well, as we see, not great. Unless you go to, let's say, a kettlebell conference in Minnesota with Dragon Door, then you'll see some very serious-minded athletic people there. Some are not as fortunate as others. They build up quickly. Well, in other words, they're born with it. Still, it is not right to expect something without working for it. And neither is it right that a person should work so hard at his or her exercises that the time spent seems like a torture period. So, it still is the old story, one step at a time. You got to have your mind on what you're doing. Back when I was learning drums, 1979, 78 I guess I started, I never took a drum lesson. I used to take accordion lessons when I was younger. I started playing drums. I realized I had a knack for it, and I really loved it. And I just learned from records and from watching people. Maybe not the best, but most rock guys, at least the legendary ones, that's the way they did it. I think it's more here than here to learn it that way. And I had to do repetition after repetition, and I just had to be patient. Sometimes I wasn't. I would get frustrated and throw the sticks across the room. But when I think of that first time I sat down in cardboard boxes to try it, to where I got to where I could do these very fast runs, it came a long way in just a short time. And the only way to do that was one step at a time. There was no way to leap over certain things, at least for the way I wanted to play. I was a very kind of, I first learned from, listened to simple drummers, and then went on to ones that were very fast kind of guys like Keith Moon, who I used to love. In fact, I still do. So the lesson to be learned here is the mind-body connection when you're exercising. And I see this with clients. They want to talk to each other, do stuff, they're impatient, while they should be focusing on putting a good effort into 3 good reps instead of 20 pieces of junk. They're never going to get anywhere like that. Okay, enough. So fitness saps out there, pay attention to what you're doing. Don't just try to fit it in and try to do 5 other things while you exercise, because you're not going to get anywhere. Number 2 is I'm turning 50 this month, and I have spoken about an online training video program. And I've determined that for guys at my age, that's going to be the center of this. There's several areas of fitness that need to be worked on and can be worked on all at the same time with exercises and progressed in the right way, in the right order. But when you get to around 50, one of the main problems is going to be you're going to lose more and more mobility and flexibility. And if you lose that, it's harder to develop strength. In fact, you could get injured doing it. Stamina, balance, all these things that you're going to need as you get older just to be able to get in and out of a chair. I think it's pathetic that old people let themselves get so decrepit that getting in and out of a chair is like a nightmare for them. It doesn't always have to be that way. Yes, there's degenerative disease, but even some of those, as we find, with exercise and nutrition, they can be delayed or totally avoided even. Jack LaLanne has certainly proven that. He's turning 95 this year, and the guy exercises 2 hours a day still. So, that's going to be the video. Guys at 50, not exactly 50, but that doesn't mean if you're younger that you can't benefit, because it's basically the same kind of things, and I've seen people in their 20s who move like they're in their 40s. So, I'm sure that you guys can benefit from this too, and women. Women, when it comes to mobility and flexibility, some are very tight. Some look like they're kind of tight, but really what the problem is all those little muscles are very weak inside. They can't turn on, so the joints aren't willing to go through the things because they're scared to. Your brain is saying, no, no, we can't do this. So there's really 2 areas to work on: mobility, flexibility, and the stability part, especially in your spine, so your brain gets the signal so joints can move. So you can go through a full squat or a bench press or whatever. That's step 1.